Hey guys, Buildzoid here, and today we're going to be doing a rather different video because, I've been thinking about the Buildzoid versus PC part picker videos, and I figured, the part most people probably find the most useful in the Buildzoid versus PC part picker videos is my memory recommendations and my motherboard recommendations. So, why not trim off the excess and just do a video because I already do motherboard recommendation videos for Gamers Nexus. So I figured, well, why not trim off the fat and just do a RAM recommendation video? So I went through PC part picker, and so far I only went through like 4x8, 2x16, and 2x8 configurations because I have zero experience with higher memory densities than that. I have some 2x32 gig sticks, but like I have two 32 gig sticks, but those are Samsung, generics, so they don't really count in my opinion as far as experience goes. So yeah, I have zero experience with like 4x16 or 2x like more expensive, like better binned 2x32 or 8x16 or 8x8, like any of that. No idea how that behaves. So don't really want to talk about those because there's not really much I can say with, confidence about those. So instead, we're just going to look at 4x8, 2x16, and 2x8 configurations. And yeah, like I just basically went through PC Part Picker and picked memory kits that didn't look ridiculous in terms of their price tag relative to their specifications. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing is the 4x8 category, and I'm actually not sure if I'm going to go through... Well, I just made a list of different parts, like different kits. Yeah, it just... Like, the thing is... Actually, no, we'll scroll through to the kits that I actually highlighted for myself, so good luck to me finding them. But it shouldn't be that hard, because they're kind of obvious. So... First things first, 4x8 configurations. So 4x8, why would you want to buy a 4x8 memory kit? Well, you're on X299, you're on Z390, and you have a T-topology motherboard, or you're on a Ryzen 3000 series CPU, and there it really doesn't matter, because Ryzen 3000's memory controller is super strong, and it can just kind of roll through any issues that Daisy Chain has with 4DIMM configurations, at least up to the frequencies that are useful. So, the 3600 to 3800 megahertz range, you're still going to be fine in there. But if you're on Z390 and you have a T-topology board, so an Asus or a Gigabyte ATX motherboard, you really want to be on a 4x8 configuration to get the best overclocking. And then for X299, you want to have all four memory channels running. If you don't have them all running, you actually do lose a pretty significant amount of performance. So, yeah, I picked out a bunch of the 4x8 kits, and unfortunately, so at this point you might be like, okay, so why couldn't I just go with two 2x8 kits? Well, you can. The thing is, if that doesn't work, you're not really going to be able to like get a whole lot of support from the memory manufacturer for that. Now, in my experience, like I've had zero issues, like running 2x8 configure. Like I don't actually, I have one 4x8 kit. Everything else I've tested is just like sets of 2x8. So that's kind of the thing. And actually I have 4 sticks that are actually individual sticks, that like bought separate sticks, not as any kit together. And those all work together just fine as well. But the thing is just like, if you just want a sort of plug in, plug the memory in, enable XMP, forget about it kind of experience, buying a 4x8 kit does mean that the XM, like, you kind of have a bit more backup with the manufacturer, but I don't know. I feel like once you're buying high-speed bins, then, it'll always be like, oh, it's your motherboard or it's your CPU. It's not our memory kit that's causing issues. So, that's kind of why I don't believe in memory kits spec'd about above 4400 megahertz for 2x8, and for 4x8, it's just like, well, I'd avoid all of this stuff up here. And actually, I'd avoid most of the top bin kits anyway, like in general, but still. Like basically, the 4x8 kits should be more fire and forget, whereas, if you're messing with two 2x8 kits, then it might be a little bit more involved, but... I don't know. Like when I look at memory kits and consider buying them, I don't actually care about their XMP spec too much. It's mostly like, is this B die, and is it good B die or is it bad B die? That's kind of my main criteria. Or more like, actually, no, it's not even that criteria. It's like, how little can I pay for a kit of B die? That's my main criteria, right? Because, like, yes, there's obviously better B die and there's worse B die, but B die is still B die, and the biggest benefit that you get with, say, B die over a lot of the other ICs is the incredibly tight secondary timings, as well as the much tighter primaries. But that's kind of where, like, the primaries are where you start seeing the big divisions between, like, really great B die kits and not so great B die kits, and it's where you can end up spending a lot more money there, money on. So anyway, we're going to start going through here and picking out the kits. So the first kit for 4x8 that I consider worth considering is actually, like, it's not a cheap kit. It's this stuff right here, because it's 4,000. Wait, do they have a better bin? No, that's 3,616. So no. So this is straight up 4,000 CL17. And it's actually 1737. It's at 1.35 volts, which is actually, like, that's aggressive. Like 1.35 volts at 4,000, you'd normally be looking at like 1939 timings. So this kit is just like it's expensive. It's very expensive, but the specs are really nice. And yeah, this is also a speed where, like, if you plug this into a T-topology motherboard from Asus or Gigabyte, you should be able to just enable XMP and forget about it. X299's memory controller might kind of faceplant if you put 1737 at 4,000 megahertz on your CPU. Like, a lot of, like, my experience with 4,000 megahertz on X299 is that you better have a good motherboard, because otherwise, it ain't going to work. And generally, X299 likes to sort of wall out at around 3,600. But, yeah, and then, of course, on Ryzen, you'd be underclocking this. So the timings might come down a bit. Like, this is a kit that, like, I really like this combination of timings, voltage, speed, and the fact that it's a 4x8. The thing is, with 4x8 kits, actually hitting the XMP spec is a bit more difficult, because they do actually need to make sure that, you know, this will run. So it's not like a 2x8 kit 4,000, like 2x8 at 4,000 and 17 is actually easier to run from the CPU's memory controller perspective than a 4x8 kit, because this just puts more memory onto the memory controller, and the memory controller actually has to deal with that. So this is like, if there was a 2x8 4,000 17 bin, which I think G.skill does, it's just kind of ridiculously expensive. So for the 2x8 configurations, I don't consider it. But, like, this is probably one of the best bins just out of the box as far as timings go out there. And I'd actually really want, like, if you bump this up to like 1.4, maybe 1.5 volts, this might run like 15 or something lower than that. So this is a really interesting kit, but it is very expensive. You can get B die for a lot cheaper than this. But yeah, as far as just like, if you just want something crazy fast, I think this is where I would stop, because above this, the specs don't really get any better, right? You get 413319 for $500, or you can get, 3216 for $480, or you can get 3214 for $470, or you can get 3614 for $540. Like, this is 400 megahertz lower for a 3-tick reduction in cast latency. I don't think it even drops the TRCD, does it? Yeah, no, the TRCD is only 2 ticks down, and it bumps up the voltage. So that's a very silly memory kit, right? Like, you're paying way more money for less frequency, for at slightly tighter timings, but it's just like, I'd be very surprised if this didn't tighten to the exact same speed. So, it's just like, yeah, these kits up here, yeah, they're nice if you just want to enable XMP and forget about it, but I think if you're willing to put in a little bit more work, this is definitely, like, and even, like, on Intel, this is a great fire and forget kit. On Ryzen, this you'd have to actually manually tune into something, because obviously 4,000 on Ryzen is not ideal. You really want to be running like 3,600 or 3,800 megahertz so that you can lock in that 1-to-1 FCLK frequency with your memory frequency. So anyway, that's why I really like that G.skill kit. Anyway, moving on from that, we have another option, which is, I'm just going to copy paste that one in. Wait, no. Trident Z16. Okay. This one. Yes, it's this one. So this kit right here. And so this, significant price drop, about $90 cheaper, 16, 16, 16, 36 timing. So this is still B-die because at 3600 megahertz, most other memory ICs won't do TRCD. Actually, I think no other memory ICs will do TRCD this low. Especially not at this voltage. So yeah, this is a really hey, if you still want B-die and you want this is a good fire and forget speed as well, where it's just like you can enable XMP, especially on like Ryzen, you'd enable XMP and you don't have to do anything. So yeah, that's pretty, that's I guess a selling point for some people. But also it's still B-die, it's 4x8. On an X299, this would actually work really, really well, because I don't think, 3600 tends to be where the X299 memory controller starts having issues. Well, past 3600, that starts to be where you start seeing issues. And actually that's true of most platforms, is just past 3600, things start getting more difficult. Up to 3600, it's really easy, and then past that, yeah, it starts becoming a mess. So this would be a nice fire and forget kit for almost any platform, but it's still B-die, and it's also 16, 16, 36 B-die, which is not the loosest you can get at 3600 megahertz for B-die. So this is a halfway decent bin in terms of timings, frequency, voltage. And so, if you want to manually tune this, definitely a solid, I would consider this a really solid option. To start off with, because yeah, it's not that expensive. And now we get into sort of the cost saving kits. So we're gonna keep, actually I'm not gonna keep scrolling down. So at this point I'm just gonna copy paste speed bins in. So this right here, it's another Trident Z Neo kit, except this one's 16, 19, 19. This is almost certainly CJR from Hynix. And it could also maybe be DJR, which is the new IC from them, but I'm not sure about that. This is another, $100 cheaper. It's probably you might be able to push the clock speed up a bit, but the thing about CJR is it does not do as tight timings as B-die does. But it's certainly it's not the thing is there's the performance differences in memory, there's massive differences in terms of timings, but the actual performance impact you see from that is not really that big. So I wouldn't really feel bad about going for this instead of, something like this. Just this won't hit as high clock speeds. It won't do as tight timings, but it is much cheaper. And also it's 3600 megahertz. So this is another case of you could probably stick this into just about anything, enable XMP and forget about it. And that's a nice thing to have with memory. So anyway, let's go even cheaper. So here we get a kit that, I'm really not sure what you'll actually get with this. This could be B-die, this could be CJR, this could be many, many things, because it is a very strange, it is loose. It is it's 18, 19, 1939 at 1.35 volts. I've heard of this being B-die. I've heard of, I would not be surprised if this could also be CJR. It could also be Rev E. It could be basically anything at this point. But sort of for me, the kind of selling point with this is it does come with a memory fan. So, if you're into, if you want to push silly memory voltage, 1.5 volts into it, then, hey, the memory fan does actually help in that scenario, especially if it's B-die, because B-die is very, very temperature sensitive. So that's kind of the thing. But this is kind of in my opinion, this is the loot box memory kit out of my list, because I have no idea what 18, 19, 19 would be. And it's also one of those bins, it could be B-die for the last 6 months, and then suddenly it's all CJR. Right? So that's the thing. But it is $230, so it's not super expensive. It is still 3600, so that's, a nice speed. The fact that it's 3600 eliminates a lot of the really trash memory ICs, because there's a lot of stuff out there that'll go up to 3200 CL16, but it won't go past that. Right? And that's kind of the stuff you want to avoid. And 3600, no matter how god-awful the timings are, is not going to be incapable of doing, it's certain, it's XMP 3600. This can't be as bad as something that, barely does more than 3200, which is what you get on the 3216 kits a lot of the time, where it's AFR, trash bin B-die, what else is there? Micron Rev B, which, yeah, so there's a revision B of Micron, which is awful. It could also be Rev E Micron, which isn't so bad. There's just so many different ICs that'll go up to 3200 and not past that. And it's just like, you really want to avoid those as far as I'm concerned. So that's kind of like, this kit does that because it's 3600 and it has a fan. So, you know, if it is B-die, awesome. If it's not B-die, I mean, at this price point, your other options are like CJR, you know, so that's kind of that. I don't see that as a huge loss. Now, you could go a bit cheaper again, and you could get what I think is probably CJR again, except now a even worse bin, as it's 19, 20, 20, 40. So yeah, looser CJR, probably CJR. I don't know what else it could be. Because Rev E would also do this, so it could also be Rev E, but really not sure for like basically once you get into the looser timings, it's like it starts becoming more and more of a loot box in terms of what ICs you actually end up with most vendors like G.skill or Corsair or Team Group or anything, because these larger memory vendors, they buy memory ICs from, you know, they buy them from Micron, they buy them from Hynix, they buy them from Samsung, and they'll just kind of throw, actually these days you'll also see Nanya, you'll also see, actually this could be a Nanya bin now that I think about it. This could be a Nanya bin, because Nanya now does DDR4, so they're like a, I actually don't know where they're from. They're like a really small DDR4 manufacturer, relatively speaking, compared to like Samsung, Hynix, Micron. And yeah, but this could very easily be a Nanya bin. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, yeah, so this could be all kinds of things again. Actually, the Corsair kit could also probably be a Nanya bin at that point. So, because Nanya does cert up to, I think they do JDEC up to 30. No, I don't think they do JDEC up to 3200 for sure. Like, I remember looking at Nanya's DDR4 product list, and it had some, like, I think they went up to 3600 on their own, like, product list, which is strange because there's not a JDEC bin for 3600. But anyway, so this could be all kinds of stuff, but it's cheap and it's 3600, so it's probably not going to be that bad. And at the very least, you can, you know, fire off XMP and forget about it. So yeah, anyway, now we get into the, I really want to manually do my, you know, memory settings, which is the Rev E. So we have Crucial Ballistics in 3200 megahertz. This is $150. As far as I'm concerned, you can't get a better deal for $150. You're not going to get a better memory IC because Rev E Micron, very overclockable. You know, with X299, you might be actually able to do, like, if you have a good X299 motherboard, like an X299 Dark or a Apex from Asus, or maybe one of the Asus Extreme boards. I'm not sure about Gigabyte, but basically, Rev E is really light on the memory controller, and X299's memory controller is not the greatest. So with Rev E, like with B-die, it tends to wall around 4000 to 4200, even on good motherboards. With Rev E, it might do 4400. Not that you're going to get the best timings, because Rev E just doesn't time very well, but it might do pretty high frequencies. So, you know, this is the memory I would get if you're very committed to manually tuning all of your settings. Great for Ryzen, great for X299, great for Z390, for everything, really, because it's just damn cheap, right? It's $150, which compared to something like, you know, this is $440, like literally less than half the price of some of the other kits that we looked at. And this should be able to hit, you know, easily into the low 4000s if the memory controller, your memory controller and motherboard are capable. This should easily do low 4000s. So actually not even necessarily, well, yeah, like low to mid 4000s should be quite easy on this stuff. So yeah, and with Ryzen, you'd obviously only be aiming for like 3600 to 3800 with this stuff. So yeah, I think this is a really solid option. If you can't find the 32, and what you want to watch out for with these Crucial kits is you want that AES part number. If it's not AES, there's a pretty, like, the AES part number basically tells us it's Rev E. If it's like BES, then I think it's Rev B. And there's other part numbers that Crucial uses for other dies, so you do want to watch for that. But yeah, this is a good option. Then if you can't find the 3200, you can get this also in red and gray for color options. Then there's also this option if you want something slower. Again, you know, same criteria, same reasoning for this kit as for the 3200 version. This though is 3000 and oh, they don't specify the timings here. Well, that really sucks. But it is, where is it? Yeah, this is an AES kit, and this should be. Let's just go straight to Newegg, right? This should be a 15, 16, 16 timing. Oh, it doesn't say here either. Well, you can look up the part number on Crucial's site, and it should be 15, 16, 16. Anyway, this is Rev E. Again, this should go low to mid 4000s in terms of overclocking if the memory controller and motherboard that you pair it with are capable. And again, it's around $150. So, you know, absolutely great bang for the buck, in my opinion. So that's kind of the 4x8 kits. Is just 4x8 memory in general is just really, really expensive, right? Like, I'm not really, and I guess it's just because it's so much harder to get it to pass the XMP validation that they do. So that's why these are so much more expensive. But yeah, if you just want cheap 4x8, this is the gold standard as far as I'm concerned, because $150, it doesn't really get much cheaper. You can go down to about like 110 for a 4x8 kit, but it's just like at that point you're looking at, you know, potentially really, really bad memory kits. Where you're going to have very little overclocking headroom. They're probably going to get stuck around 3000, that kind of thing. And it's just like, yeah, I'd rather not. Like at that point, you know, I'd rather pay the extra $30, $40 to get something where I know if I have a good motherboard and a good CPU, I'll do, you know, whatever speed you want. Like Rev E can clock stupid high. It's just that it doesn't do timings. That's kind of the main issue with it. But yeah, so this stuff is a solid option for the 4x8. Now, the other, so now that's all of the 4x8 kits I have. And I will be putting a list of all the kits from PC Part, all the PC Part Picker links in the description below the video. Now, for the other 32 gig configurations, 2x16. So why would you want to buy a 2x16 kit instead of a 4x8 kit? Well, you're on a daisy chain Z390 motherboard, so MSI, or I think ASRock does daisy chains for Z390. You're on a Ryzen 3000 series CPU. You're on a ITX Z390 motherboard. You're on a Ryzen 1st gen or 2nd gen CPU. Yeah, because 1st gen and 2nd gen, both their memory controller, well, if you're on a 1st gen or 2nd gen CPU with a daisy chain motherboard, that's kind of the thing. And some X470s are daisy chains, some are T-topology. But with X570, basically, like, the majority of motherboards are daisy chain, so there you'd want a 2x16 kit. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing. So, 2x16, obviously not for X299. It's basically, it's a situational sort of configuration, as I consider it a situational configuration. With Ryzen 3000, it works basically everywhere, but with 1st gen and 2nd gen, you need a daisy chain motherboard for it. With a X299, it's not relevant for, because you lose 2 of your memory channels, and that's a huge performance penalty. And for Z390, again, it's like for ITX boards, where it still doesn't clock that great, but you really don't have any other options for 32 gigs. And for daisy chain Z390 motherboards, which are, again, it's like if you have a daisy chain motherboard. If you have a T-topology, this stuff will actually hurt you very, very badly because it will not overclock. So, yeah, because T-topology really doesn't play well with with 16 gig sticks unless you have 4 of them, and even then, it's just like at that point you have a whole separate issue, which is the fact that you're running quad memory ranks and your memory controller is just crying about how you've given it way too much memory to deal with, and how you're a horrible person, and how it's never going to go above 3200 megahertz again, and how and just, you know, like you don't really want to put that much RAM onto a dual channel memory controller in general. But at least that's what I've heard from people who have done, from somebody who has messed with that. I've personally not had any experience with quad rank memory on dual channel yet. That is something I do need to try, but I expect it to be horrible, because if you look at how dual rank clocks, it's already like dual rank already is like the memory controller is not exactly like impressed with what you're doing to it, and then if you double the amount of memory it has to deal with, I can't see that going well. Anyway, so let's go through 2x16. Interestingly enough, 2x16 ends up having a lower maximum price point than 4x8, mostly because it also It doesn't get bin to as high speeds as 4x8 does. Though this 4400 kit, that's a listing error. If we actually check this on Newegg, Corsair doesn't do a 4400 CL19. They do a 4000 CL19 for 16 gig sticks. So that there is actually a listing error on PC Part Picker. Anyway, let's start going through the kits. So first up, we have some speedy B-die from G.skill, and I think, where is it? Can't possibly be this stuff. I'll just copy paste it in. We'll open a random memory kit. Nope. There. This stuff, yes. So this is $340-ish. It's 4,000 megahertz, 1939 timings, 1.35 volts. It really, for 16 gig sticks, you really, well, you can pay more money, but you're not really going to get anything better than this anyway. So that's kind of the thing, right? If you look here, so we have 4133, 19. We have 4000, 19. We have 3866, 18. So, you know, you lost a bunch, you basically lost the clock speed difference for that timing change, and freaking same, like the price point's way up. Then we have this, which is 4019, way more expensive. Then we have, wait, is this actually even available? Because I already ran into one kit where it was a 2x16 kit where I was like, oh, this is a nice, yeah, it's in stock. Perfect. So, yeah, this stuff. Basically, 1.35 volts. You're not going to see better timings on 16 gig DIMMs anyway. 4,000 megahertz. You know, I'd stick it into, for Ryzen, you'd be underclocking this and tightening up the timings. For Z390, you could actually probably, with some Z390 motherboards, you might be able to run it at like 4133, maybe even 4266. It will be very difficult. You'll probably be looking at like an ITX MSI board. Ryzen would actually be able to push this up to 4266, maybe even 4400, but Ryzen memory control, like it doesn't give you any performance benefit. It's mostly just for showing off, so that's kind of useless. So yeah, with Ryzen, you do want to just stick around to like 3600 to 3800 megahertz anyway. So the fact that this is a 4000 kit is really kind of irrelevant. It's just a nice speed bin in general. And yeah, this memory kit is just like, the thing is, it really, like 16 gig DIMMs are super motherboard dependent, especially with Z390, where it's just like, if you stick this, like, I have some 16 gig DIMMs, and on motherboards that play well with them, I can do 4133 quite easily. On motherboards that don't play well with them, I'm stuck at like 3733. And I'd imagine that this memory kit is no different in that, where like you stick it into some motherboards and it just absolutely does not go anywhere near 4000. So that's kind of the main concern with it. But obviously, like, since it is a really nice bin, you could always just tighten down the timings, you know, as low as they go and that kind of thing. So, you know, like, yeah, 16 gig DIMMs are just awkward with Intel's memory controller because it's so dependent on which motherboard you're looking at. Anyway, so that's one of the 2x16 options. And this is like the fast B-die option. If you want cheap B-die, man, there is a great option. So this right here is, I think, the most cost-effective way of getting 32 gig, like outside of buying two 2x8 kits, this is the most cost-effective way of getting 32 gigs of B-die onto Ryzen 3rd Gen. This is just perfect. So it's 3200, 14, 14, 14, 34 timings. So this is B-die. It is $230, and like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's in stock. So this right here is, in my opinion, just if you just want B-die and you want 32 gigs of it and you want it cheap, this is it. It doesn't really get better than this. There are some slightly cheaper options. So yeah, if you're on an IT, like, this is perfect RAM for Ryzen 3rd Gen as far as I'm concerned, because dual rank B-die, you can stick this in daisy chain motherboards, T-topology motherboards. It'll do 3600 to 3800 very, like, I'd expect it to do 3600 to 3800 very easily with Ryzen 3rd Gen. Again, with Z390, it's going to really heavily depend on the motherboard, how far you can push this. With Ryzen 1st and 2nd Gen, you need to have a daisy chain motherboard again. Not relevant for X299. So yeah, this is a kit that, you know, hell yeah. Like, for you really, like, this is really cheap for what it is. Like, B-die, like 2x8 kits of B-die minimum price you're looking at is around $100, right? So this is a really good deal for the fact that it's 32 gigs. So next we get into Because the thing is, if we look at around that price point in general, right? So that kit, like this is it. And oh, you can also get it with a white highlight instead of just a black highlight, but I'd get the black one. Anyway, so at this speed, otherwise you can get, so G.skill has a Ripjaws kit, which is like the same bin, but slightly more expensive, and I'd say uglier heat spreaders. Then you can get this stuff, which just like, what the hell is this? 3333, what's that? I don't know. 16, awful. Then we have 2666 at 16, terrible. No, just no. 3015, like straight up no. You could get 3200 for slightly more with red highlights. 3466 16. This could be B-die, but it could also be Rev E. Like this could be a variety of, like a lot of different things, and it's $240, so it costs more. So it's just like I don't see a reason to get that. If we go below that price point, we get 2800. 16, so awful. 3014, basically the same price. So this is probably B-die, but it's a much looser bin. So why would you get that for $5 less? Like, no, just get the 3214. Like this is a solid B-die bin. 3014 is, I've heard, can be kind of iffy. Then, what else do we have? Oh yeah, we have 3466, but it's CL18. So that's a nice loot box bin right there. That'll be just about anything under the sun. 2933 16. So just straight up terrible in every way, shape, and form. 3216. Well, 3216 loot box bin. 3215. This might still be. No, I wouldn't bet on this being B-die. It could be, but I wouldn't bet on it. So yeah, for 229, you get a nice solid bin of B-die. Like, what else would you go for, right? So next option is a sort of fire and forget bin. So we're looking at 3600 now. So 3600 CL16, $180-ish, right? Trident Z Neos, and this is going to be almost certainly CJR, judging by the 16, 19, 19, 39 timings. But this is a really good option for just enable XMP and forget about it on Ryzen 3rd Gen or Z390, because the thing is, 3600 megahertz on most ITX, on most Z390 2-DIMM motherboards. So like, ITX boards from Gigabyte, MSI, Asus, really anyone. 3600 should work no problem if you just fire like as just an XMP enable. Daisy chain motherboards should also have no problem just running this as an XMP enable and forgetting about it, because 3600 is just easy in general. Wouldn't put this in a T topology. And yeah, but Ryzen 2nd Gen should absolutely love this stuff. Ryzen 1st Gen, you might have to underclock it, and 2nd Gen, you might have to underclock it, right? Like that's the thing with those, but that's the same for some of the other kits that we went through. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this kit because it's just like it's a good fire and forget bin. It's also CJR, so you might be able to clock it up a bit, if you loosen out the timings a bit. So yeah, this is a really sort of nice fire and forget bin, in my opinion, but it's not B-die. It's definitely not B-die. It could also be Rev E. But yeah, it's not a bad option, especially considering the price tag. So this could be an interesting kit to sort of, if you want to save some money, like performance-wise, you get most of the, like, especially with Ryzen 3rd Gen, you get most of the benefit from the 3600. Like, that's the priority, is just getting that FCLK up there. And this does that really, really well. And your cast latency isn't as bad as it could be, right? You could also get a kit that's 18, 22, 22, 42, right? If you want really loose. So yeah, that's kind of why I really think this is a solid option. And anyway, let's move on from this one. And yeah, even on Z390, like this is just a good solid option where it's nice and easy to fire off. It just on Z390, I wouldn't expect this to this would probably, like, I don't know how CJR actually behaves, but in terms of max clock speed, but I wouldn't expect this to overclock very far. But as an XMP and enable and forget about it, this looks like a really good option, especially considering the price tag. And then, of course, we get into the Rev E. So let's open up a random kit because, okay, so at this point, we're like in this area of the list, because let's look at like some of the other options in that sort of $180 price range, right? You have this stuff, which is 3015. So who the hell knows what that is? That is a loot box bin. I couldn't care less what that is. Here's the actual Neo kit itself, I think. Yeah, that's the actual kit that I found. Then we have this Dominator Platinum, which again is 3216. So that's a loot box bin. 3014 might be B-die. That actually might be interesting. This could be a solid option as well, I guess. That's 180. But this is like if you're committed to manually doing all of your overclocking, and it might wall early. Like it might actually stop at like 3400 or something. So that's kind of why I would just go, you know, in this price range, I think a lot of people might just be looking at like, I want to set XMP and forget about it. And that's what that Trident Z Neo kit does really, really well, because it's 3600. So what else do we have? Oh yeah, you can get 3618 for $10 less. You know, 2 ticks more of cast latency for $10 less. What great cost savings! What a great trade in performance for performance for the money, right? Like no, if you're gonna be downgrading your memory kit, like make the cost difference significant, and to that extent, we get into this end of the memory kits. And we're going to look at this stuff, the Rev E from Micron. So we have 3200 CL16 with our lovely AES part number right there. You know, this is actually, as far as I know, this is 161818. 1.35 volts. Again, this should be like, again, depending on which motherboard and memory controller you pair this with, it should be able to clock up into the low 4000s again. Revi is really, really light on the memory controller. So that's kind of the thing. Yeah, so this is kind of like, if you want to do manual overclocking, this is one of the options. You can get it in red like we have here, or silver or white. And then if you want there's another Rev E bin, which is this right here, and that's 3000. Again, we have the AES part number, and it's 2x16, you know, 15, 16, 16 timings this time around, slightly cheaper. Should be able to hit low 4000s, right? Again, it should overclock basically the same as that 3200 bin. So, and you save a little bit of money. So these are kind of the, like, if you really want to save some money on your memory and you are committed to manually tuning your RAM, Rev E is, I think, one of the best options because it's just so damn cheap. And then again, you know, otherwise I would go with one of, if you want B-die, then I pointed out the 2 B-die kits. If you want CJR, 3600 CL16 is, in my opinion, the best option because you get relatively tight primaries, and it's 3600 megahertz. So for Ryzen 3rd gen especially, you get all of the FCL, like most of the FCLK benefits right there. So that covers the 2x16 kits. Let's look at 2x8. And 2x8 is a very interesting place because so far we've basically been seeing like a lot of G.skill, you know, some crucial kits, and a lot of, and some core, like there was one Corsair kit, tons of G.skill, and a ton of crucial, right? And 2x8 kits is where this completely goes out the window because in 2x8, we have Team Group and we have Patriot, and both of them make some very, very interesting, very, very cheap B-die. And, well, I love me, you know, like, I love B-die, but I love it better when I don't need to pay very much for it. So let's get into it. So, funny thing about 2x8, because 2x8 is capable of absolutely insane frequencies, because you can get it in, like, you can get Rev E single rank 2x8, bin the absolute crap out of it. You know, you can look at kits that do 4800 megahertz plus, and then, you know, high speeds demand a premium. Probably mostly because these kits are just, like, very low volume. So it's like, yeah, we're probably going to sell like 10 of them, if even that. And so, yeah, we might as well charge like close to $1,000 for those. Because we're going to be selling those to insane people and insane people only. And insane people don't consider $1,000 for a memory kit an unreasonable price point. But yeah. Anyway, so let's start scrolling through. So the funny thing is, we have all of these memory kits that are like $700, $400, $300, $200. But you know, I said this earlier, I don't believe in memory spec'd above 4400 megahertz because it's just like, at that point, above 4400 megahertz is when like even the 9900K's memory controller starts complaining a lot. And you're so dependent on like, have the right motherboard, have a good CPU, have, you know, potentially like the right airflow in your case. So I don't like kits that are rated above 4400 megahertz because they're just asking for, like, those are kits where you enable the XMP and there's a very good chance it just won't work. And this is especially true if you have like a T-topology board or even a daisy chain, right? If you have a daisy chain motherboard, you can easily end up in a situation where, you know, a 4400 megahertz memory kit with a 9900K just won't post. And you want to avoid that as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is, this right here exists. And this right here is 4500 megahertz at under $200. Okay, and at that point, I'm willing to let go of my no memory kits above 4400 megahertz principles, because it's not that much above 4400 and it's sub $200, right? Like, that's the thing, is like all of these other kits, they're like $200 to $800. And like, okay, some of them are only 4,000, like, or 3866 at 18. Freaking 18. 3866. I can get 18 at freaking 4,500 for $100 less. Yes, literally like almost $100 less. Like, that's, see, this is why this kit gets to, you know, violate the rule of I don't like memory kits above 4,400 megahertz, because they probably won't they probably won't work unless you have a good motherboard and a proper CPU. Well, 4600 is actually not that hard to run. It's just that 4600, right? Like, 4600 is crazy expensive. So why would you get that when you can get 4500 for like half the damn like half the price, right? Like, what is wrong with these people? And even 4400 from like G.skill and Corsair is absolutely insanely priced. But Team Group, for some reason, 4500, 1.45 volts, like, that's not even the highest voltage you could go for. 18, 20, 20. So the timings are pretty loose, but this is at 4,500 megahertz. And this is the best bin of B-die that Team Group makes. So I would expect this to be pretty damn decent. So yeah, that's why this gets onto my list of noteworthy, you know, 2x8 memory kits, because it's under $200 and like 500 megahertz higher clock speed than everything else in the same price range from other vendors. Because the thing is, it gets better. Because did you know 4400 megahertz could be this cheap? Because, well, I did, because I made this list. But did you? Because, yeah, it can be, like, crazy freaking cheap. And actually, like, I have no idea. And this is 1939, 1.45 volts. So it's not an amazing, like, actually, this is a halfway decent bin still, because TRCD tends to be kind of more, like, TRCD tends to be a bigger problem than TCL. And yeah, so 1.45 volts, you know, pretty decent timings, especially considering the clock speed, right? And, I mean, what's not to like? Like, it's so damn cheap. Like, even if this stuff isn't great, for this price, you could buy 2 of these kits, instead of some of the higher spec kits up here, right? And at that point, if you have a Ford motherboard, you just dual rank your way past the higher speed kits anyway. Like, who cares? If you have dual rank, that basically offsets some, you know, a good amount of timing disadvantage. So that's the thing. I just wouldn't really be too fussed about the fact that this is, you know, yeah, you could maybe get 4400 at similar timings at slightly lower voltages, but you would never get it this cheap. And I mean, as I said, I like my B-die and I like my B-die cheap. So that's why this kit gets on the list. Next, we have, did you know 4133 could be both tight and cheap? Because, yeah, I did. And I'm actually really sad because Team, for whatever reason, I can't get this speed bin in the UK. I really want this bin, but I can't get it in the UK. So this is 18, 18, 18, 38. So these are actually legitimately pretty tight timings at 1.45 volts and 4133 megahertz. Like, and it's $130. Like, oh, and it's out of stock. Well, I guess it's too good for its own good, so it's out of stock already. But it says in, yeah, so sucks. But anyway, this really, really solid option. But guess what? B-die can be even cheaper and still rated above 4,000 like 4,000 megahertz. Patriot, Viper Steels, Still 1939, but this time at 1.35 volts, $120-ish. I mean, like, it really, like, it used to be that if you wanted B-die in these kinds of speed specs, actually, in general, the Patriot Viper steels are just crazy cheap. Except this one. This one's like 1921, which, yeah, that's the thing how I said, like, TRCD is the difficult timing, right? This is 1.35 volts, 1921 at 4133. That other kit, and that's how it keeps the 1.35 volts. And then they go up to 1939 at 4400, and suddenly it's 1.45 volts, right? Like, that's the TRCD drop doing a lot of that voltage increase. But yeah, so this stuff is just like, I mean, it's B-die, it's crazy cheap, it's 4,000 megahertz 1919. You know, it's probably not it's probably not the best B-die ever made, but it's still B-die, and that means it's better than basically all the other RAM out there. So that's why this kit gets on the list. Now, what if you wanted just a fire and forget 3600 megahertz XMP, right? And you actually want to save some money. So in that case, this stuff at $90, this is probably Hynix CJR because it's 1939 at 3600 megahertz. This is pretty damn loose. But the thing is, yeah, if you just want to fire and forget, like, the thing is, XMP is, like, the primary timings don't make that much difference in terms of performance, but they do make a lot of difference in terms of price point. So, like, a 3600 CL16 kit is significantly more expensive than a 3600 CL17 kit, but a 3600 CL17 kit is not necessarily going to be significantly slower than a 3600 CL16 kit. Now, if you actually manually tuned the 3600 CL16 kit to have, you know, tightened up the primaries, tightened up the secondaries, then the 3600 CL16 kit is going to blow away a 3600 1919 kit, because this is CJR, and CJR doesn't tighten up the secondaries anywhere near as much as B-die does. But that's the thing, is, like, I consider this an XMP fire and forget kit, where it's like, I'm going to enable XMP and I'm not going to touch anything. And for this is perfect. Now, this is actually not the cheapest you can get this kind of speed and timing configuration at. You can actually go as low as, well, you can go down to this stuff, which is $75. But the thing is, this looks like it's about to go out of stock any minute, right? Because, yeah, so that's why I also included that other kit, because I'm not sure how long this will be available. And we already have one kit where it was like, this is amazing, and then it's like, oh, it's out of stock. So I didn't want to have, like, there's been a couple of kits where I bothered to check the stock, did check the stock levels, and it was like, oh, I'm going to have to find a different kit. But yeah, this is a really, like, good, like, a nice option for just fire and forget your XMP, right? Then we have another option, which is which is 3400 megahertz. This is probably still CJR. It could also be B-die, but probably CJR because it's Patriot. And as far as I know, they have, like, piles of CJR. But it's 3400 megahertz, so you might be able to clock it up to, if it is CJR, you might be able to clock it up to 3600 quite easily if you just loosen out, like, TRCD, TRP, and your TCL. And then, you know, it's cheap, and also it's 3400 megahertz. So, like, on Ryzen, this would actually cost you a decent amount of performance, because you're going from, you know, 1800 FCLK to 1700 FCLK. But on Z390, you don't have an FCLK. So 3400 megahertz at 16, 18, 18 is going to perform relatively similar to 3600 at 17, 19, 19. So this is another good option for, you know, fire and forget XMP. But if you do end up with a CJR kit in this, then manually overclocking it, you might be able to get 3600, 3733, 3866 even, maybe, right? Like, again, I'm not sure where CJR tops out in terms of frequencies, but yeah, so this is an interesting kit, and again, it's really, like, very, very cheap. It's around $70 to $80, so that's an noteworthy kit for me, because the thing is, a lot of the other kits at this price point, right, if we go down to all the way to that freaking price point, just like way, yeah, like where it was page 3. So yeah, at this price point, most of the other kits are like 3,000 or 3,200, right? And well, 3,200, as I've said before, like, that's what I consider a loot box bin. Yeah, I don't want a loot box bin. Oh, this looks relatively interesting. 3733. I wonder how much of this is in stock. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have tons of this. So, yeah, this would be also a decent sort of $80 memory kit option. With this, the thing is, like, if this is on Ryzen, you're going to have to bump up your FCLK to 1866, and there's a chance your CPU might not be able to do 1866 FCLK. And also, the timings got even looser. Yeah, so that's the CJR thing, where it's just like, yeah, your TRCD and TRP, all, like, they're going to the moon, because wizard sleeve timings for those, because that's how CJR behaves. But yeah, still a solid option if you just want, you know, a high speed. And you could obviously drop it down to 3600, tighten it up, or you could try push it higher, right? Both are options, and it's still like $80, so super freaking cheap. And then the other options around this price point are really just a bunch of 3200 kits, and then like this really loose 3600 kit, right? Like this is still probably CJR, but like, my God, those timings suck, right? Like that's 1920, 2040. At 3600, like, yeah, no, just straight up no. And at this point we get to the, you know, the Rev E again, because with Rev E we know that it'll do high frequencies, you know, low to mid 4000s, even maybe high 4000s if you get lucky, and it's pretty cheap. The thing is, it doesn't really, like, $80 seems to be pretty much the floor price, like the minimum price that you can get 8 gigs of well, no, you can go down to, like, you know, $60 ish, even 50, but at this point it's just like, yeah, you know, if you're buying kits in this speed range, you obviously couldn't care less about overclocking. Like, literally couldn't care less, because these are probably all binning rejects, and they're gonna suck. Just like, if anything in this rate, like if any of these does more than 3200 megahertz, I'd be very, very surprised. And that's why I would also ignore this entire price segment, and like 2417. Yeah, just like, if you're buying stuff down here, just buy whatever's the highest, or like buy whatever has the highest frequency, because there's a good chance it won't overclock if it's lower frequency, right? That's kind of the thing. So I don't see a point in trying to highlight kits down there. Anyway, back to the... Wait, I'll just punch in the Rev E kit again. So basically, this will do low to mid 4000s. It's about $75, so it's not really... You don't save much. You don't save much compared to the CJR, but as far as I know, CJR really doesn't clock past 4000 anyway. So that's kind of the reason why you'd want to get, you know, maybe if you're on Z390 with like an ITX motherboard, like well, yeah, an ITX Z390 motherboard, this could very easily end up in the low to mid 4000s. If you're on Ryzen, then this will be... Well, on Ryzen, I'd actually probably just go for a 3600 CJR kit at that point, because the price difference between a 3600 CJR and this really isn't that big. And there, at least you get the straight right off the bat XMP support, but you might get better success with manually tuning this stuff. And then, yeah, so that's kind of the thing, is just like, yeah. And for Ryzen 1st and 2nd gen, this actually might be really easy. Like, for Ryzen 1st and 2nd gen, this might have advantages in terms of how light it is on the memory controller, but that's kind of it with this stuff, is just like, yeah, the thing is, if this can do high frequencies, it really can't do tight timings. And that's kind of the main concern with it. Well, primaries are okay. This actually does better primaries than CJR does, but it's like on the secondaries, I don't really know. My experience so far with the secondaries on my Rev E is that they're awful, and there's not really anything I've been able to do about it. So, yeah, I wouldn't, you know, put too much, like, I wouldn't really expect too much of this in terms of secondary timings, but yeah, it should behave kind of like it's not B-die, right? And honestly, but you do save a bunch of money, so it's kind of like choose your own poison at this point, right? I would probably, like, you have a bunch of options. Just choose whatever's cheapest. And I would straight up, like, as a general rule of thumb, I would avoid 3216, because 3216 is everything under the sun. Especially if you're especially if you're going to be spending more money on your memory than like $100, avoid 3216. Like, please. I don't care how much RGB they throw at your 3200 CL16 kit. Don't buy it. Okay? Just don't. Like, the thing is like 3200 CL16 as a low cost bin, sure, right? Like if you're buying 3200, like, well, no, I honestly would have a hard time understanding why you'd get this too, but sure. What the hell is this? Why? I guess it's for like people who only run JDEC, like for people who don't want to enable XMP. Oh, there's a 3400. Oh, I actually pointed that out already. Yeah, you can get 3416 for $70. So, yeah, that's kind of the roundup of like, because the thing, like, you might be like, wait, wouldn't this maybe be Rev E? Well, let's see. No, no, it wouldn't. I actually really wonder what that would be. F, because I think there's a Rev F, like there's a Micron Revision F die, and I think, as far as I know, Rev F is a 4 gigabit IC. So this would have to be dual rank. This would have to be awful if that's actually the case. But I'm not sure I'm not sure if that is actually the indicator letter. I know AES correlates to Rev E pretty directly, but FSB, I don't know what that is. And actually, it might just be FS, because this might be just like a color thing. Or, well, anyway, so that's, I've highlighted the kits I wanted to highlight. I've also made this video almost an hour long because RAM is like, there's so much choice in memory. It used to be that if you wanted good memory, you had to buy B-die and everything else was trash. At least if you were buying 8 gigabit ICs. So, because it used to be that your options for 8 gigabit was Hynix AFR 8 gigabit, which is pretty terrible. Hynix MFR 8 gigabit, which is, I think, even worse than the AFR is. Then there was 8 gigabit Micron, which was, I think, relatively comparable to the AFR. It timed, like, it had some weird timing difference. Like, it had some differences in terms of timings, but the performance was still nowhere near B-die, and I don't think it actually clocked that high in the first place. It might have been like 3200 or 3400 in terms of max frequency. And so basically the only good 8 gigabit IC was B-die, because B-die was 8 gigabit and it could go all the way, like it can actually go all the way up to 4800. And so that was like it. Like you could buy B-die or you could buy trash. That was the options. And now it's like you have CJR, which it's not B-die, but it's pretty good. You have Rev E, which again, not B-die, but it's pretty good. And then you still have the AFRs, the MFRs, and all of the trash, which is what you get in the 2400 megahertz and the 3200 CL16s, and the 3000 CL16s, and all of the sort of bottom tier super cheap memory kits. Though, funnily enough, I mean, even if we go on to page 1 into expensive memory kit land, this exists. Why? Nobody will be able to explain to me. Or what else is there? This actually might be, well, actually, let's check. I want to know. Okay, this might actually be B-die. 17, 18, 18 is actually like, that's a B-die bin. It's not a great B-die bin, but it is a B-die bin. It could also at this point be a Rev E bin. I'm not 100% certain on that. Oh, but yeah. Oh, wait, no, that's 14. So that's not too bad, isn't it? I'm trying to see if there's anything that's like, oh, this is this is terrible. 3016 for $180. Oof. Like, just oof. Oh wait, Corsair does an actually interesting bin of LPX. It's 14, 16, 16, 1.45 volts though. I mean, actually, that's really similar to that, Trident Z Neo bin. But the thing is just like, you can buy, like, just manually down tune one of the crazy, Team Group or Patriot kits, right? Like, that's what I would do, is just like down tune one of the crazy kits from those two. instead of going with like, because the thing is like these kits where they're like 3600 CL14, right? Like these are kits that are very specifically targeted at people who want to buy a Ryzen system and they just want to buy a memory kit, just enable XMP and get the best possible performance, and they don't want to put any effort in. And I guess, you know, for those people, this is fine. Like, that's fine. If you're one of those people, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, you know, well, you know, maybe you make, I don't know, $50 every, yeah, well, if you get paid $50 an hour, you could make the argument that spending $50 more on your memory kit is actually worth saving, you know, the potentially a lot of time that you would spend tuning memory, right? Like, yeah, so I can see why some people would go for that. But I assume also those people don't really watch my channel because you don't have the time to spend an hour watching one of my videos, right? So that's kind of the thing. Oh boy, there's a 266616 up here. How did that get there? Okay, well, whatever. I'll stop looking at the crazy price tag kits. So yeah, as I said earlier in the video, there will be all of the kits I highlighted. There will be links to them down in the description below, just straight to PC Part Picker, not like any affiliate links or anything like that. Because, well, I can't be bothered with setting up an affiliate program. So, it's kind of that. Also, I guess it, like, well, I don't know. I've just not looked into that. Can't be bothered. So, yeah, I'll just give you PC Part Picker links to all of the kits that I pointed out. And yeah, so that's it for the video. So I guess thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. And if you'd like to support what I do here with IHOC directly, you know, then I have a Patreon where you can support me through that. Or if you'd like to buy some IHOC merch, there's shirts, stickers, posters. What else is there? I think that's everything. Oh, there's also hoodies and socks on Teespring. I'm actually serious. Like, there are AHOC socks. So, yeah, there's a link to that down in the description below. I've been talking too much today, and yeah, those, you know, Patreon and Teespring both help out immensely with running the channel. So yeah, if you consider those, that would be great. And thanks for watching. And goodbye.